Hey everyone. With everything that's been going on in recent weeks, I know there's been a lot to take in. Um, and there's a conversation that stretches back over 400 years. And lots of people are at different points in this conversation, many of whom are trying to catch up. So I wanted to talk about a perspective that I don't think gets shared very often, and one that I think can help others who today might be where I was in the past. Something that I learned growing up, which was extremely difficult to unlearn, but absolutely necessary to move forward. Growing up, my community was almost entirely white. One key point that we were taught about race was that everyone is equal and everyone should be treated as such. And I think at its core, this is a beautiful idea, right? Like, we're all equal, be nice to everyone, and everyone will be okay. And we lived pretty much the entirety of our childhood and teenage years seeing that around us because, well, we were a mostly white town, so there wasn't really a chance to see anything but that, right? So, we lived out our early years knowing that we were good and just because we weren't racist. We knew that slavery and segregation existed, but that was abolished, the bad men lost, and now everything is good again. But we weren't taught to embrace our differences. We weren't taught about different cultures or socioeconomic backgrounds. We were pretty much taught not to see or talk about color. And that in turn has blinded us, and it left us oblivious to what's been happening just under our noses for so long. Our moral code was built on a preconception that everyone starts out on a level playing field. The rules are fair and that they apply to everyone. But what happens if you go 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life, and then you find out that that's not true? And spoilers, it's not true. We grew up completely unequipped to even discuss topics of race. The painful realization that we must accept is that we do see color, and we can find powerful evidence in that the game is rigged. There are communities, towns, cities that don't get the same resources. There are children who grow up going to schools that have less effective teachers, less funding. There are people who have been second-guessed through every step along their journey, who have been unfairly punished in school, who are stuck living to paycheck and get fined for driving 5 miles under the limit. There are people who are assumed to be a troublemaker or criminal for literally existing. There are people who every day of their lives at some point need to pause and hope that their loved ones make it back home safe, because hopefully they won't encounter a cop on a bad day. This is a concept that is so foreign to someone who hasn't ever experienced it that I think most white people have this sort of short-circuit reaction in their brain the first few or many times they're exposed to it. I know I did, absolutely. You hear some crazy story and you think that can't be right. Something about this information has to be wrong, or it's an outlier, some rare exception, because there's no way that in this world I was raised in, where everyone is good and fair to each other, that this whole thing was a farce. It can't be the case. I was raised believing that cops are heroes who put their lives on the line to stop the bad guys. They are the protectors of the innocent. Over time, sorrowfully, I learned that, yes, there are some bad cops out there. I didn't want that to be the case, but, you can't make other people not be racist, right? Like, that's out of your control. And surely, if they acted out of line, then, we have a system for that, right? They'll get fired, they'll get arrested, they'll serve time if they actually, committed some horrible crime. Then later on in life, I had to accept that there are entire areas with corrupt police where Black communities, especially communities of color, grow up bullied, grow up just being knocked down a peg over and over and over again. And that's awful, but that's not here. It's not fair, but I can't do anything about that. It's all the way over there. What am I going to do? It was never here. It was never real. It was the exception. It was the outlier. It was, it was out of my control. Over time, and also especially thanks to the furry fandom, where I've met such an amazing, diverse group of people, I've gotten to connect with more Black and brown friends, people of color, and I've had honest conversations with me. They've had honest conversations with me where they've shared their life experiences, where they've told me that they have had all these. They've had various sets of situations that fall under a lot of these categories happen to them, and it's, over time it just became more and more irrefutable that this is real. And the fact of the matter is, and the real kicker behind this, it sounds insane. It feels insane to say and acknowledge this. It's not just in the South. It's not just in the bad areas. It's everywhere. Even in the most beautiful progressive cities where I thought this is like a utopia. It'll never happen here. We're good. But not everyone is. Coming to accept something like this shatters the foundations upon which you were raised. Yet people of color have lived under that glass ceiling their entire lives. While the focus right now is on police brutality and accountability, we also need to understand that this goes much, much deeper, and it will take lots of conversation and growth to overcome. In some ways, it's easy for me to relate. When I think of how many times I easily was able to hide the fact that I was furry or queer because I was afraid that someone in a position of power or influence might use that against me, it becomes crystal clear just how powerful my white privilege is. When I think about how if even one of those people that I was able to hide myself from was actually the kind of person who would turn that against me, my whole life story could be different. I would have been up a much steeper hill. That is my white privilege. I've listened to too many stories and said, I'm sorry, that's so messed up. But that's not enough. I've empathized and I've been upset from just imagining the anger and sorrow that people of color must carry with them on a daily basis, seeing this happen to others, knowing it's happened to themselves, knowing it's happened to their loved ones, and knowing that it will continue to happen despite their best efforts. That maybe at best it might get a little better. But being empathetic is not enough. I've wanted to speak out. I've been afraid of saying the wrong thing or missing important points, and that's just cowardice. Now I'm here to stand as an ally. I'm here to do my part in spreading information and awareness. I'm here to encourage everyone who is in a position where they can do so to also stand up as an ally. Because we need change, and we all have to do our part in whatever ways we can. We need to educate each other. We need to put pressure on politicians and local authorities. We need to learn how our local governing systems work so we can apply pressure correctly. We need to listen a lot. We need to listen to as many diverse perspectives as we can take in so that we can get the puzzle pieces on the table so we can begin to start putting them together. We need to remind ourselves that regardless of whether things calm down after a few weeks, the work isn't done. We need to change minds. We need to find ways to build bridges together, stronger, unified. It's not going to come quickly, but it will come with persistence. Till everyone is free and equal, none of us are. Thank you for listening. Black Lives Matter.